palpite infeliz. Salve Estácio, Salgueiro e Mangueira, Oswaldo Cruz e Matriz, que sempre souberam muito bem que a vila não quer abafar ninguém, quer mostrar que faz samba também.
Saber agora a volta está chegando pra mim, velho. Vamos ver se... Eu tenho um canal de Webex aqui, tá vendo?
This is a mic check audio. We are here at IGF 2015 for a mic check. We are just checking the audio from the English booth. This is an audio check. 1, 2, 3. We are here at IGF 2015 in the city of João Pessoa, state of Paraíba. 1, 2, 3. Check. Check.
Okay.
Notícias perderão todo o controle dos fatos. Celebridades cairão no anonimato. Palavras deformadas, fotos desfocadas vão atravessar o Atlântico. Jornais sairão em branco e as telas planas de plasma vão se dissolver. O argumento ficou sem assunto. Vai ter mais tempo pra gente ficar junto. Vai ter mais tempo pra enlouquecer com você. Vai ter mais tempo pra gente ficar junto. Vai ter mais tempo pra enlouquecer. Os políticos amanhecerão sem voz. O outdoor com as letras trocadas. Dentro do Banco Central, o pessoal vai esquecer como é que assina a própria assinatura. E os taxistas já não sabem que rua pegar. Que belo e estranho dia pra se ter alegria. E eu respondo e pergunto: é só o tempo pra gente ficar junto. É só o tempo de eu enlouquecer com você. É só o tempo pra gente ficar junto. É só o tempo de eu enlouquecer. Alarmes já pararam de apitar. O telefone celular descarregou. O aeroporto tá sem teto e a moça da TV prevê silêncios e nuvens. Afirma que o trabalho faliu e o governo decretou feriado amanhã no Brasil. Será que é pedir muito? É só um jeito da gente ficar junto. É só um jeito de enlouquecer com você. É só um jeito da gente ficar junto. É só um jeito de enlouquecer. É só um jeito da gente ficar junto. É só um jeito de enlouquecer com você. É só um jeito da gente ficar junto. É só um jeito de enlouquecer. Triste é viver na solidão, na dor cruel de uma paixão. Triste é saber que ninguém pode viver de ilusão, que nunca vai ser, nunca vai dar. O sonhador tem que acordar. Tua beleza é um avião demais pra um pobre coração que para pra te ver passar só pra me maltratar. Triste é viver na solidão. Triste é viver na solidão, na dor cruel de uma paixão. Triste é saber que ninguém pode viver de ilusão, que nunca vai ser, nunca vai dar. O sonhador tem que acordar. Tua beleza é um avião demais pra um pobre coração que para pra te ver passar só pra me maltratar. Triste é viver na solidão.
Todo dia ela faz tudo sempre igual e sacode às 6 horas da manhã. E sorri um sorriso pontual e me beija com a boca de hortelã. Todo dia ela diz que é pra eu me cuidar, essas coisas que diz toda mulher. Diz que está me esperando pro jantar e me beija com a boca
it works.
de
Good.
café.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to start the opening ceremony in about 10 minutes. I kindly ask the opening session speakers to please come to the front and take their seats. Thank you.
E me beija com a boca de paixão. Toda noite ela diz pra eu não me afastar. Meia-noite ela jura eterno amor e me aperta pra eu quase sufocar e me morde com a boca de pavor. Todo dia ela faz tudo sempre igual, me sacode às 6 horas da manhã, me sorri um sorriso pontual e me beija com a boca de hortelã. Don't dream, don't, don't dream, don't dream, don't dream. Don't dream, don't dream, don't dream, don't dream. Todo dia ela faz tudo sempre igual, me sacode às 6 horas da manhã, me sorri um sorriso pontual e me beija com a boca de hortelã. Todo dia ela diz que é pra eu me cuidar, essas coisas que diz toda mulher. Diz que está me esperando pro jantar e me beija com a boca de café. Todo dia eu só penso em poder parar, meio-dia eu só penso em dizer não. Depois penso na vida pra levar e me calo com a boca de feijão. 6 da tarde, como era de se esperar, ela pega e me espera no portão. Diz que está muito louca pra beijar e me beija com a boca de paixão. Toda noite ela diz pra eu não me afastar, meia-noite ela jura eterno amor e me aperta pra eu quase sufocar e me morde com a boca de pavor. de hortelã. Don't dream, don't, don't dream, don't dream, don't dream. Don't dream, don't, don't dream, don't dream, don't dream.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to start the opening ceremony. I again kindly ask the opening session speakers to please come up front and take their seats on the named chairs. I would like to start on time, as you know, these sessions can go on. And can I kindly ask the rest of you to take your seats, please? Ladies and gentlemen, can you kindly take your seats? Thank you. Yes. Oh, okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Assistant Secretary General, the Governor, and the Minister are about to approach, so kindly ask you to take your seats if you haven't done so. And I also kindly ask the opening session speakers to come to the front row and take their seats. If we have any more opening session speakers, can they please come up front?
Só poderia ser sempre com você. Você acelerou minha calma. Só poderia ser sempre com você. Você acelerou minha calma. Já misturou tudo em mim. São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro. E Londres num grande terreiro. Natal caiu em fevereiro. É carnaval o ano inteiro só. Com você poderia ser. Só poderia ser. Sempre com você.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The Assistant Secretary General is entering with the Minister and the Governor. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start the opening ceremony, we would just like to have a short presentation by a local artist, Miss Lucy Alves. Some of you will know as the voice behind the song that introduced the IGF Joe Posoem in last year's meeting in Turkey. We'll start off with a video.
Paraíba que encanta, terra bonita cheia de lembranças, nas ondas do mar ou no verde enraizado, belezas por todo lado, culinária de encher os olhos, artesanato de encher a mão. que é feito na Paraíba. Talento não falta não. Quem ainda não visitou, venha logo conhecer, porque quem pela Paraíba passou nunca mais vai esquecer.
Estado mais oriental das Américas, a Paraíba é o local onde o sol nasce primeiro. Situada no nordeste do Brasil, a Paraíba possui uma localização privilegiada. A capital, João Pessoa, fica a aproximadamente 120 quilômetros de Recife, capital de Pernambuco, e a 180 quilômetros de Natal, capital do Rio Grande do Norte. Do litoral ao sertão, do Brejo ao Cariri, na Paraíba o turista sempre encontra alguma coisa para se surpreender. Começando pelo clima agradável e dias ensolarados a maior parte do ano. E tanto o sol e calor são excelentes para pegar uma praia. O difícil vai ser escolher qual delas, já que o litoral de João Pessoa é repleto de belas praias banhadas pelas tranquilas e mornas águas do Oceano Atlântico. Como Picãozinho, com suas piscinas naturais a menos de 2 quilômetros da costa, a famosa praia de Tambaú. Terceira cidade mais antiga do Brasil, João Pessoa é uma verdadeira mistura do passado com o presente. Sobrados, casarios coloniais e igrejas seculares compõem um dos maiores e mais importantes sítios históricos do país. Além disso, reservas de matas nativas e parques florestais fazem de João Pessoa uma das cidades mais verdes do mundo. O Centro de Convenções é uma das maiores obras turísticas do Nordeste, com área para congressos que acomoda 2.500 pessoas, 15 salas multiuso, teatro com 3.042 lugares e pavilhão de exposição com 19.000 metros quadrados. Virando em direção aos mares do sul, o destino é a Costa do Conde. A Costa do Conde tem praias como Coqueirinho e Tabatinga, que apesar de estarem apenas a alguns quilômetros de João Pessoa, parecem desertas. Para quem é adepto do naturismo, Tambaba, a primeira praia do Nordeste a oficializar esse estilo de vida, é o lugar para relaxar. Se as belezas da Paraíba são de encantar, a saborosa culinária é de deixar qualquer um com água na boca e vai da tradicional comida regional até os mais requintados pratos feitos de frutos do mar. Seguindo o litoral norte estão cidades como Cabedelo, onde se encontra o porto de menor distância entre o Brasil e a Europa, o maior terminal de pesca oceânica do Nordeste e a Fortaleza de Santa Catarina. Um monumento histórico fundado em 1589. O turista ainda pode aproveitar atrações naturais como a areia vermelha, um banco de areia que sempre se mostra na maré baixa. Mais um verdadeiro espetáculo da natureza, o pôr do sol incomparável da praia fluvial do Jacaré é a pedida certa para ver o dia se transformar em noite. Tudo ao som do bolero de Ravel. Seguindo em frente, o turista encontra Lucena, onde o passeio já começa no ferry boat, em direção à cidade e continua de mãos dadas com o tempo e a natureza. Falando de tempo, um lugar onde ele quase parou é na Baía da Traição. Aqui o turista pode viver na pele as tradições e costumes indígenas que permanecem preservadas ao longo dos anos. Uma verdadeira jornada na vida dos primeiros habitantes do Brasil. O município também se destaca por suas praias paradisíacas. Em Mataraca, as atrações turísticas ficam por conta da praia da Barra de Camaratuba, das trilhas ecológicas e das cavalgadas, disponibilizadas pelos hotéis fazenda da região. Campina Grande é a segunda maior cidade do estado, a maior cidade do interior do Nordeste e se destaca por sua infraestrutura, sendo um parque tecnológico e universitário da região. E quando a matéria é São João, o campinense sabe festejar. dona do maior São João do mundo, Campina Grande mostra toda a sua capacidade de realizar grandes eventos de sucesso, comemorando o mês inteiro a festa de um dos santos mais populares do Nordeste brasileiro, com muito forró e comidas típicas. Na Paraíba, o talento e a criatividade do artista popular se revelam em suas mais diversas formas, utilizando uma variedade de materiais. Os personagens contam histórias do imaginário popular e cenas do cotidiano. Os utensílios vão de potes e panelas de barro às charmosas e confortáveis redes e rendas feitas com algodão colorido. Um algodão natural, ecologicamente correto, que já nasce colorido e só é produzido no estado. Continuando em direção ao interior, a natureza e a história privilegiam um brejo paraibano. Casarios coloniais, engenhos, serras, vales, cachoeiras, matas e rios compõem o cenário da região. Não é só de ecoturismo que vive o brejo da Paraíba. Que tal aventurar-se também pela história e religiosidade e conhecer o Memorial Jackson do Pandeiro, o Santuário de Frei Damião e a cidade histórica de Areia? Cada vez mais longe do litoral, nos contornos do Curimataú, a Pedra da Boca em Araruna, lugar muito procurado para caminhadas e para a prática de esportes radicais. No Cariri, o mistério continua e vira coisa de cinema. Em Cabaceiras, o roteiro ideal é visitar os locais onde foram produzidos importantes filmes nacionais, como Alto da Compadecida e Viva São João. A cidade também é cenário de uma das mais místicas atrações naturais da Paraíba, o Lajedo do Pai Mateus, com a Pedra do Capacete e inscrições rupestres de 3.000 anos. No extremo oeste do estado, existem atrações para conquistar você, que vão além dos limites da história. O Vale dos Dinossauros, em Sousa, com trilhas fossilizadas de mais de 120 milhões de anos e 80 espécies de gigantescos moradores. É um dos mais importantes sítios paleontológicos do mundo.
Ficaram os passos na Pedra da Boca marca, no brejo todo friozinho, histórias e muitas matas. Em Campina, grande cidade, o mês de forró se passa, nos mares do norte ou do sul, belezas e todas as graças. A Paraíba é grande, a Paraíba encanta, você jamais vai esquecer. Voltamos a João Pessoa, onde o sol adora brilhar. Meu destino é Paraíba, muito mais que sol e mar. No recanto bonito do Brasil, sorri a minha terra amada, onde o azul do céu é mais cor de anil, onde o sol tão quente parece mais sutil. Lá eu nasci, me criei, fiz canções e amei, sempre tive inspiração. Lá no Nordeste imenso tem um fulgor intenso, meu sublime torrão, a minha terra que só encerra belezas mil. pode ser chamada a namorada do meu Brasil. A minha terra tem o cantar dos passarinhos, na lagoa os gancinhos, com seu nado devagar. As morenas tão gentis, ostentando seus perfis, numa noite de luar. Não tem a fama da baiana, mas a paraibana sabe amar, tem sedução. Paraíba hospitaleira, morena brasileira do meu coração. Paraíba.
Thank you very much. That's a very beautiful voice. I also hope that all of you will stay and wait until after the meeting to enjoy all that Paraíba has to offer. Thank you. I would like to invite the Assistant Secretary General for Economic Development, Mr. Lenny Montal, the Minister of Communications of Brazil, Mr. André Figueiredo, and the Governor of Paraíba, Mr. Ricardo Conchino, to proceed to the stage, please. Thank you very much. Welcome to the 10th meeting of the Internet Governance Forum. It is my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Lenny Montal, Assistant Secretary General for Economic Development, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, to deliver a message on behalf of the United Nations Secretary General. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, stakeholders participating online around the world. I'm honored to join you at the 10th session of the Internet Governance Forum and to deliver a message on behalf of the United Nations Secretary General. I quote, "I am pleased to send greetings to all participants of the 10th session of the Internet Governance Forum, including those following online. And I thank the government of Brazil for once again acting as a host. Less than 2 months ago, world leaders adopted the visionary 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Our challenge now is to implement this blueprint for a better future. Information and communication technologies and the internet can empower this global undertaking. The breadth and depth of the Sustainable Development Agenda will require that we tap into the potential of the data revolution through the use of new and non-traditional sources of data. We must enhance the statistical capacities and ensure our efforts are based on sound science. Many challenges exist, including large digital divides, people living in poverty, women and girls, children, indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, older persons, marginalized and vulnerable groups lack adequate access to and training in using ICTs and the internet. Cyber attacks, cybercrime, and issues related to privacy and surveillance are also issues that need to be addressed. I call on all stakeholders to intensify efforts to promote accessibility, affordability, education and multilingualism by investing in critical infrastructure and capacity building, and by building an open, reliable, safe, secure, stable, and inclusive internet through multilateral and multi-stakeholder global partnership. Let us reaffirm the universality, indivisibility, interdependence, and interrelation of all human rights and fundamental freedoms, both online and offline. Let us turn the digital divides into digital opportunities for all. Let us leave no one behind. I wish you a productive Internet Governance Forum. End of quote. Excellencies, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, also known as UNDESA, has been entrusted by the Secretary General of the United Nations to oversee the Secretariat support to the Internet Governance Forum. We at UNDESA appreciate the opportunity to have serviced the IGF for 10 years, a unique multi-stakeholder forum on public policies relating to global Internet governance. We remain committed to supporting the IGF should member states decide to extend its mandate beyond 2015. In echoing the appeals from governments and other stakeholders, we will further strengthen and improve the functions of the IGF. I wish you all a vibrant and outcome-oriented meeting. Now, in accordance with the customs of the Internet Governance Forums, I have the honor to invite Mr. André Figueiredo, Minister of Communications of Brazil, to assume the chairpersonship of the 2015 IGF on behalf of the government of Brazil.
Assistant Secretary General Montiel, thank you for your kind words. It's my pleasure to accept the chairmanship of 2015 IGF. Now, I would like to formally open the IGF 2015 in João Pessoa, and allow me to present a video message of Her Excellency, Mrs. Dilma Rousseff, President of the Republic of Brazil.
Ladies and gentlemen, participants of the 10th Forum of Internet Governance, or IGF, I want to express the welcome of the Brazilian people for all that have rushed to João Pessoa to take part of this edition of the IGF. I am sure that this meeting will allow the deepening of the great themes that concern governments and organizations of the civil society, businessmen, scientists, and researchers that work in the development of the global internet. We want to help in the creation of an inclusive environment and also sustainable that allows the experience between differences and seeking consensus to evolve the internet and its governance. 10 years after the WSIS, and its main recommendations and conclusions remain current. We should preserve the accomplishments made and seek solutions for the new challenges, which is balancing security and full respect to human rights, specifically right to privacy. Brazil has been endeavoring to build paths to evolve the current system of internet governance. We have hosted in 2014 Net Mundial, whose statement identified principles for internet governance and a pathway for its future evolvement. The high-level UN meeting late this year, once it reviews the 10 years of implementation of the results of the World Summit, also should face these themes. Actually, it is an important challenge that we have ahead of us regards the conclusion of the reform process of the supervision or oversight system of the central parts of the internet. This exercise should result in the creation of a structure that is of global nature that should indeed respond to the demands and expectations of the community and that renders accounts of its action. There is no opposition between multi-stakeholders and multilateralisms. Some themes require deliberation on a multilateral level. In this case, all the countries should have the possibility of taking part on equal conditions, without having only one country or a small group of countries having priority over the others. One internet submitted to intergovernmental arrangements that exclude the other stakeholders would not be democratic, nor are acceptable multi-stakeholder arrangements subject to the oversight of one or few states. Thus, the complementarity between these two concepts, multi-stakeholder and multilateralism, derives from the recognition of the different roles and responsibilities that should be performed by the actors that take part of the ecosystem of the internet. In Brazil, the successful experience with the multi-stakeholder and pluriparticipative model implemented by our CGI has inspired us to build and approve the Internet Marco Civil. Internet is only possible within a scenario of respect to human rights, freedom of expression, net neutrality, diversity, universality, security, and thus protection of privacy and the states of all. Our great challenge is to expand the access to the internet for those that are still disconnected, especially those that live in developing countries. We must have joint efforts of all participants present here so that we can move forward in the development of a society of digital inclusion. This is the commitment of my administration that will be implemented via the program Banda Larga para Todos, broadband for all. Brazil has been from the beginning an advocate of the internet use as a multi-stakeholder debate. We defend the extension of its mandate. The IGF, due to constant search for consensus amongst the various areas that are interested or stakeholders, is one of the most important forums to continue the trajectory of building global internet, enabling the sustainable development and also inclusive development. Welcome to João Pessoa. Welcome to Brazil.
If you don't mind, I would like to continue my speech in Portuguese. Então, senhor
Lenny Montiel, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellency Ricardo Coutinho, Governor of the State of Paraíba, also our Vice Governor Lígia Feliciano and her secretaries, ministers, authorities present, all the representatives of civil society, of the telco, corporate organizations, the academia, and technical community. Once again, I'd like to reiterate the welcoming of our President Dilma Rousseff and how we give the welcome to the IGF and the city of João Pessoa. For us, it's a great honor to have you all here and to have the opportunity for the next few days to share with you information, visions, experiences, and propositions to enhance our ecosystems for internet governance. I would like to start saying a bit about one aspect that really challenges the country's developing countries access to the internet, which are the ones that are still not included in the Society of Information. One of the core issues is the discussion on the options of public policies to connect the next 1 billion users. In Brazil, there is full awareness of the importance of internet access in people's lives. The Marco Civil, that has as its essence respect to freedom of expression, the human rights, and development of person individuality, says that access to internet is essential to exercising citizenship. That way, one of our big challenge is to really find the broadening of infrastructure in telecom that gives support to internet, and also really have a regulatory scenario that is stable, that can bring on investment, innovation, and respect to citizens' rights. In Brazil, we have had great efforts to promote access to internet to all. Within our program of broadband, we have some tax waivers for internet equipment and also for building broadband network. We have encouraged to have local providers. There are thousands around the country, and that today invest heavily in cutting edge network. We are about to launch a geostationary satellite to cover the remote areas of the country, and of a submarine cable to improve our connectivity internationally speaking. As a benefit of this group of actions, we had notable impact. In December 2010 to August 2015, the number of subscriptions to internet in broadband has increased 69%, going from 15 to 25 million. For mobile broadband, we had a growth of 867% of subscription, which went from 34 to 138 million. And today, there are 208 million subscriptions for internet access through broadband in the country. The wide scale of the service shows a connected society. In 2014, half of the households had access to the internet, and 94.2 million people with at least 10 years old were internet users. So this significant numbers shows economic growth, increase of productivity, national integration, and above all, digital and social inclusion of our population. Beyond the challenges that each society sees in their own national state has a global impact and an impact individually. Our view, as said by our president, Dilma Rousseff, is that multi-stakeholder approach and multilateral approach are complementary concepts, respecting each theme and the roles and responsibilities of each of the players that are part of the internet. And the view of Brazil when it comes to the global processes of internet governance can align with what we practice in-house. I'd like to remind you that a bit over a year ago, we hosted the multi-stakeholder meeting for the future of internet governance, Net Mundial, held in São Paulo through the call of Dilma Rousseff. I believe that the draft from this meeting, bringing on principles to be followed, is the roadmap for the future evolution of the global ecosystem of internet governance. And it's an important benchmark for our discussions here at IGF. Based on these assumptions, we have now the task to debate and understand complex concepts as enhanced cooperation and the role of government in a multi-stakeholders approach. We need to identify mechanisms of strengthening for this multi-stakeholder environment so that all voices can be heard and can influence all the processes that impact them. It's necessary to have a look into the specific demands of the developing countries and less developed ones as well. Together with that, the dynamism and the ability of change in internet brings on concrete, solid issues. How to preserve the neutrality of the net, what business models can bring benefit or harm the internet, what is the best policy of management for critical resources of the internet, what are the barriers for the full development of the digital economy, How can we protect the respect to the essential rights in the net, especially those that have to do with freedom of expression and privacy? These are topics that will be debated throughout this week, and those which are not, there are not ready answers to be used. That way we must address, based on the understanding that internet has to be preserved within its openness, plurality, and diversity that can contribute to a society that is inclusive and fair. On behalf of the Brazilian government, once again, I would like to really wish you all a great time here and really have an enriching time in the discussions. Welcome to João Pessoa, welcome to Brazil.
I would now like to give the floor to Governor Ricardo Coutinho, Governor of State of Paraíba.
Muito boa tarde.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My dear Lenny Montu, Assistant to the Secretary General of the United Nations here, representing Secretary General of the United Nations. Our acknowledgement for the holding of the 10th edition of IGF in Brazil, my dear André Figueiredo, Minister of Communications of Brazil here, representing the distinguished President of the Republic of Brazil, dear Dilma Van Rousseff, also our partner in the Ministry of Communications in various projects to support implementation of infrastructure of digital inclusion in the state of Paraíba, that today has decided to celebrate yet another year of life precisely at the opening of this event, which is IGF. My dear Shengetai Masango, Secretary of IGF, a central partner of UN, responsible for the preparation of the schedule, our acknowledgements for hosting in the city of João Pessoa, the choosing João Pessoa to be the seat in the Center of Conventions to host the 10th edition. I'd like to thank Ambassador Benedicto Fonseca, Virgílio Almeida, as coordinator of CGI-IBR, Hartmut Glaser, and all the team for the partnership and trust in preparing and organizing IGF 2015, and we know it is an extremely important agenda for our country and for the world in this beginning of the 21st century. I would like, furthermore, to welcome everyone present, government representatives, private sector, civil society, members of academic and technical communities from the various regions of the world and Brazil. And also my welcome to the press professionals. We understand that this 10th edition of IGF in João Pessoa that will have the central theme, the evolution of governance of internet, empowering sustainable development. Already it gets it right on the starting point by choosing the main theme. From the very first moment, then we were aware of the articulation between the CGI in Brazil and Itamaraty and the UN to bring another edition of the IGF to Brazil. It was our desire to support this important initiative and to introduce the state of Paraíba, the city of João Pessoa, the facilities of our convention center with all the services and facilities, all our tourism attractions, our hospitality as a differential point for this 10th edition of IGF in Brazil. Unlike some, we are not used to saying no between four walls and announcing that we say yes to the public. Our word is only one in any environment. This is why the holding of this IGF will be a landmark in history and also in its next editions that will certainly take place. This edition in João Pessoa, outside major urban centers, signals to the importance of the open internet in the benefit of new development frontiers that are more sustainable and with special attention to better distribution of wealth throughout all regions and communities. This is an immense challenge to all of us, particularly public servants. We know that IGF makes feasible a collective and participative space for the reflection of potentialities, risks, and critical resources related to the advances of the internet in the world. This return of IGF to Brazil after the 2007 edition in Rio de Janeiro represents a recognition on the part of the other world players to the protagonism of Brazil in the global debates on internet governance. Here, I would like to make a special highlight to the partnership between CGI-BR and the Brazilian government in conducting the debate on the regulation of the internet market civil in Brazil. We are moving forward, Minister André, but we need to advance even further with the certainty that we will attain in Brazil an internet governance ecosystem guided by good practices, internationally settled, and in behalf of innovation. I believe that this model should be taken as a reference in other parts of the world. The UN General Assembly, in its resolution entitled "The Future We Want," drafted within Rio Plus 20, reasserted the strong need to attain sustainable development. We must act jointly in promoting sustainable economic growth, inclusive, equitable, generating more opportunities for all, reducing inequalities, heightening basic living standards, fostering socio-equitable development and inclusion, and promoting the integration and sustainable management of natural resources and ecosystems. This important resolution reinforces the importance of the involvement of all levels of government, legislative agencies, and segments of society in the promotion of sustainable development. We must have the engagement and plus efforts for other challenges, amongst them the continuity of the struggle for democratization of communications, opening up for a greater number of people for the opportunity of sharing a greater number of information contents that circulate in the world, giving equal conditions of individual and collective development, something that brings down another rationale that few people that are privileged can actually boast of holding exclusive information, be it as producers or broadcasters, as if information could still be an exclusively individual good and transferable. This is rather a pathway that needs strong step in a moment in which society is increasingly more vulnerable to conservative moving back, where only empowered population reduces the risks of subtracting the most fundamental rights, nothing most important than all being able to express their needs and dreams. Access to information is a basic condition for each democratic project of a society.
Internet.
Another question regarding the access to the internet that I would like to share with you regards the growing numbers here in Brazil. We estimate that over 97 million Brazilians have access to internet at home. In Paraíba, ladies and gentlemen, chosen very joyfully to host this meeting, has surfing indices that are even higher than other Brazilian states, even economically stronger. According to research conducted by the federal government, 33% of Paraíba citizens access internet 7 days a week, a higher percentage than states that are bigger like Bahia, Ceará, and Pernambuco, which are our dear neighboring states. Same survey points that Paraíba citizens spend on average 6 hours, 26 minutes per day surfing, exceeding the national average, which is 4 hours, 59 minutes, and still states like São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. Why am I saying this? I say this that for us, civil servants, this naturally imposes other challenge, expanding the way the governments relate with citizens. We must, as I could see yesterday on day 0, we have been making efforts towards this, both in the need of democratizing the use, also in the expanding of instruments of government for the improvement of public services. We are proportionally the Brazilian state that most acquired computers for students in the public school network, proportionally, obviously. We have implemented the teaching of robotics in public school, middle school. We are implementing till the end of 2016 in a partnership with MCTI and FINEP about 3,000 kilometers of fiber optics integrating 55 cities in the state. We have a process of making our budget all based in the popular participation that increasingly resorts to digital media to enhance the level of engagement of the population, as well as the transparency portal that allows simultaneous follow-up of government spending, so that in Paraíba, the population tells the state which are the priorities for investments and tries to see whether they're actually being made. I would thus like to take the opportunity of this important edition on IGF in João Pessoa to highlight that it is imperative to rethink the scope and availability of solutions of electronic government. We must listen from you, of this forum, how we can move forward and actually financially in building agendas guided to best deployment of new technologies with direct impact in the goals of sustainable development in our state. In regions like ours, Brazil Northeast, whose adversities are permanent challenges, we have to make growth leaps at a shorter period of time. We know the importance of the role of the governments with greater articulation with the private segments of civil society, members of academic and technical communities. We will be able to advance in the definition, implementation, and assessment of public policies and foster instruments towards an open internet that is democratic, safe, and that enables social and productive inclusion of individuals. I must admit that as a civil servant, I'd like to move forward in the offer of qualified services to citizens based on the internet, with the certainty that technologies and the correct empowerment of knowledge to overcome our limitations may bring a more favorable setting for sustainable growth in a region like ours, where our state is located, as well as other regions of the world, naturally. I am sure that safe, open, neutral internet, well assisted by legislation, will be able to be an important resource for sustainable development, helping generating results and positive impact in education, healthcare, agriculture, public security. Perhaps one of the great challenges of a great part of the world starts in many other areas. The state of Paraíba, with all its academic potential and also business potential, is open for partnerships that aim at the development and experimenting solutions of electronic government, involving academic centers, young talents, the generation of solutions, the establishment of innovative businesses, and connections with the market. And lastly, I wish great success to all of you on these 4 days of IGF, sharing with you the same feeling that Brazil and the world need to move forward in the strategic themes regarding internet governance that is growing and becoming more inclusive. I wish you all success. Enjoy the beauties of our state, of our capital, the easternmost point of the Americas, and enjoy the warmth of our people. We are very happy to welcome you. All of you, very welcome. Come back. Get to know better our culture and our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor Cochino. Please remain seated while Assistant Secretary General Montiel, Minister Figueroa, Governor Cochino leave the auditorium, please. I call on Professor Figilio Almeida to continue chairing this meeting. Onto the stage. He's coordinator of the Brazilian Steering Committee. One of the main organizations behind bringing us to João Pessoa. And I also like to call on Mr. Kulov. Thank you. To take the stage in place of the Assistant Secretary General. Thank you. Thank you. Now that has brought a close to our opening ceremony. We will now start the opening session of the IGF, and I will now hand it over to our next Master of Ceremony.
We will now begin the opening session of the 10th IGF meeting. We will now proceed with welcome remarks by representatives. Sorry? We're going to have now some words of Mr. Figueiredo, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, participants of the 10th Internet Governance Forum, I will speak a few words. The IGF celebrates here in the sunny and friendly city of João Pessoa its 10th edition. The first IGF was held in 2006 in Athens, when the global internet had 1 billion users. Today, 10 years later, the overall number exceeds 3.2 billion users, of which 2 billion are in the developing countries. 4 billion people in developing countries are still offline. In fact, the internet user is an archaic expression for, in the not distant future, we expect all citizens should have access to the internet. I could present a short list of IGF achievements. However, I will point out just a few whose impact was significant. Recognition of the multi-stakeholder nature of the internet which followed the meeting of the WICIS in 2005, changed the nature of global internet governance processes. The expansion of the discussions at the IGF, with the inclusion of social, economic, and political issues, was another achievement. Various cities in less central areas of the world held IGF meetings. This helped to quickly disseminate the concepts and innovative ideas of the internet to the developing world. IGF 2015 has implemented one important innovation. CGI and ISOC launched the Youth at IGF initiative, which seek to strengthen the participation and leadership of young people during the 10th IGF. Let me ask the 73 young students from Brazil and Latin America to stand up and give them an applause. I want to take these few minutes to put some basic questions that go beyond the traditional discussions of internet governance. We need to answer a fundamental question. What should we do so that the evolution of the internet make real difference in the lives of billions of the world's citizens in developing economies and least developed countries? What must we do so that the internet of the future effectively contribute to reduce discrimination and economic and social inequalities, which mainly plague the developing world? We know that internet access is essential, but not sufficient. We know that access to the current universe of information is essential, but not sufficient. We know that connecting people is important, but not sufficient. We know a lot about new digital technologies, but we don't know yet how the future internet can and should contribute to achieving the 17 goals of sustainable development proposed by the United Nations for 2030. The central question is, what do we need to do? I don't know the answers, but we do know some clues. We know that the internet of the future has to make a difference in health, education, employment, security of populations worldwide, particularly in the developing world. We know that the internet of the future needs to effectively contribute to the preservation of the environment. We also know that the concrete benefits of the internet have not yet achieved a global scale that the technology allows. The fruits of the evolution of internet technology are not fairly distributed. We need to discuss both an ambitious public and private partnership that make a real difference for the disadvantaged populations. The IGF, with its multiple views, with its multi-stakeholder nature, and with its wide diversity and representativeness, provides the ideal space to develop a response to the challenge that the evolution of the internet presents. On behalf of the Steering Committee of the Internet in Brazil, CGI, I want to welcome all participants and wish them days of fruitful work at the IGF 2015. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Almeida. We will now proceed with welcome remarks by representatives of all stakeholder groups. We have 20 people who will each speak for a maximum of 6 minutes. I ask you to respect this time limit so that we are able to finish in good time. I will remind you from time to time. The speaking order was selected by a public ballot draw yesterday. I would like to call Mr. Omar Fatih Sayan, Chairman of the Board, Information and Communication Technologies Authority of Turkey, hosts of the 2014 IGF meeting. Mr. Sayan, you have the floor.
On behalf of the Assistant Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, stakeholders all around the world, Signora, Signoras. It's a great pleasure for me to be here for the opening of the 10th meeting of the Internet Governance Forum. Having this chance, I would like to express our gratitude to Brazil for the excellent hosting of this meeting. We have been enjoying, and I'm sure that we will be enjoying our stay in this beautiful city of João Pessoa. Last year, we had the privilege of hosting 9th IGF in Istanbul, Turkey. Over 3,500 participants came together on site and online to discuss many internet-related issues under the theme of Connecting Continents for Enhanced Multi-Stakeholder Internet Governance, drawing inspiration from Istanbul's unique location where the continents of Europe and Asia meet. In IGF 2014, human rights issues discussed in detail, where IGF participants formulated an input to bring the Human Rights Council on the right to privacy in the digital age and agreed a key message. It was emphasized that there is a need for increased interaction between government entities and all other interested stakeholders in ongoing and future deliberations on enhancing trust in cyberspace. To facilitate the connection of currently not connected to internet, a strong call was made for an increased emphasis and inclusion of ICTs and internet access in the post-2015. Youth representatives emphasized the need to strengthen existing mechanisms that empower youth in attending and engaging in the internet governance ecosystem. IGF Sport Association formally launched in Istanbul to achieve stable and sustainable funding mechanism of IGF. IGF 2014 has also introduced numerous stakeholders to internet governance ecosystem and created a new global dynamism. We believe that the successful outcomes of Istanbul IGF 2014 will be a useful input for IGF 2015 here. The internet is an important contributor for sustainable growth, innovation, and development. Based on discussions to accept the right to internet access as a fundamental human right, to that extent, I am very proud to share Turkey's major set of goals within her strategic vision of 2023 regarding ICT. These goals include expanding the economy to rank among the global top 10, transformation to knowledge-based society, building an international hub for ICTs, maintaining ICT-based economic growth, and enhancing high-speed broadband access for all. Among these goals, as a G20 member, Turkey is holding G20 this year, and the G20 Leaders Summit will take place on this weekend in Antalya, Turkey. Internet economy has always been a hot topic in G20 meetings. In line with that vision, Turkey takes strong steps in order to create a fully transformed country using ICT in e-government services. We recently successfully held IMT Advanced Auction, by which operators will provide IMT services enhancing high-speed mobile internet and further the value of added mobile services and applications in Turkey. We also aim to give one of the first 5G services by 2020. In today's world, data usage proliferates exponentially in both mobile and fixed networks, thanks to the new applications, products, and services. Especially, network neutrality discussions and over-the-top OTT services revolutionize the way of delivering ICT services. OTT services create added value, but on the other hand, they affect the whole broadband ecosystem. in particular the network operators' revenues and their ability to finance network deployment. We invite all stakeholders in particular countries which have no specific rules in approaches to net neutrality to discuss these issues to evaluate pros and cons. It is important to provide rules for guaranteeing the right of internet access of the citizens in order to express their opinions freely. It is also equally important to respect privacy and data protection in the internet. We should protect the balance between such kind of personal rights and data-driven innovation and economy. That approach will unlock the economic value of personal data on one side and foster economic growth and on the other side. I hope IGF handles this issue in its meeting further to overcome challenges. There is an increasing trend in the number of people online. Online safety is becoming a critical issue for everyone. Kids have specific needs and vulnerabilities with regard to online safety. Enabling a safe online environment for kids has many aspects. Close collaboration between governmental institutions and network operators, internet service providers, private sector and non-governmental organizations is inevitable. We need to work together to prevent any illegal action, especially terrorism of all kinds, where internet is used as a mean of communication. Terrorism has no religion or language. All multi-stakeholders should reevaluate their policies and have special rules for international cooperation and combating this. In this respect, we expect utmost support from the representatives of social media companies in order to prevent utilization of internet as a tool of propaganda by terrorist organizations such as ISIS. We believe that protecting the rights of internet users against illegal content would be a great contribution to the development of internet economy. Internet intermediaries should also fulfill their responsibilities in the implementation of national laws to combat with illegal content of the internet. Close cooperation with the international organizations, governments, NGOs, and internet intermediaries required to combat with illegal use of internet. I would like to draw your attention to creating multi-stakeholder internet governments both on national and international level in order to give each stakeholder equal rights and responsibilities regarding the internet-related issues. Because of the IANA transition and ICANN accountability period, we experienced most importance of having equal voice regarding the internet governments at global level. IGF 2015 will be the perfect place for multi-stakeholder internet governance deep dives. Taking this opportunity, I would like to underline that IGF meetings provide splendid environment for fruitful discussions, fleshing out ideas, sharing ideas, and exchanging experiences in well-established manner. Turkey strongly supports the continuation of IGF and encourages all stakeholders here to join us in supporting extension of IGF's mandate under UN. I would like to conclude my words by wishing a successful meeting and look forward to joining the discussions in panels throughout the week. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Sayan. The next speaker on my list is His Excellency Bambang Heru Tajono, Deputy Minister of ICT Applications, Minister of Science, Information and Technology of Indonesia. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Excellencies, Under Secretary General, Excellency Mr. Almeida, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. It is really an honor for me to be invited and speak in front of this very distinguished audience of the opening session, the 10th IGF held in João Pessoa, Brazil today. Significant stepping stone toward Indonesian broadband economic. E-commerce transactions in Indonesia in year 2014 have reached 18 billion US dollar and expected to reach 24 billion US dollar this year. Ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia would like to be one of the biggest users and promising players in the ICT market. For instance, mobile user of cellular market is rapidly increasing, with a penetration rate estimated around 150% of the total population, reaching approximately 350 million subscriptions. Meanwhile, the number of internet users has reached 88.1 millions, while the broadband users have reached 48 millions. Broadband growth is expected to hit 30% this year and 70% by 2025. As part of our ambition, state-owned telecommunication operator in my country is planning to build another 20 million broadband accesses starting this year. These figures have contributed to Indonesia economic growth of 5.6% on average since 2009, the second highest in the G20. The growth is also parallel with the quality of ICT massive spending that reached 32.8 billion US dollar in 2013 and 36.9 billion US dollar in 2014, or 12.5% positive growth. Ladies and gentlemen, underlining the importance of existing internet governance framework, Indonesia continues to support multi-stakeholder approach that engage governments, private business, civil society, and other components in the ICT ecosystem. Internet governance has to be an impetus toward ideal ICT that respects the law and embrace norms and principles of good governance and based on a great set of ethics. I would like to conclude by expressing to work closely together for a betterment of our people through a strong, effective, and affordable ICT ecosystem, which is inclusive, transparent, equal, and people-centered. These are remaining the foundation of our works today and days to come. Therefore, let me once again stress Indonesia's strong commitment to strengthen to be an active participant in the IGF. We continue to be working with all stakeholders, and we are pleased to be able to offer a multi-stakeholder forum for open discussion of this and any other issue. So let's continue working together to ensure that the entire world's people can benefit from equitable, affordable, and safe access to internet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The next speaker on my list is Ms. Ellen Blacker, Vice President for Global Public Policy of the Walt Disney Company. Mrs. Blacker, you have the floor.
Boa tarde. My name is Ellen Blackler. I work for the Walt Disney Company, and I'm speaking on behalf of the BASIS initiative of the International Chamber of Commerce, whose global network reaches 6 million companies of all sizes and sectors across 130 countries. Representatives of the private sector come to the IGF each year to engage with all our colleagues in civil society, government, and the technical community, build common understanding of the opportunities and challenges presented by the evolution of the information society and internet economy, and identify policy options to address those challenges and leverage those opportunities. ICC and the individual businesses that travel to the IGF each year are committed to the goals of the WSIS and to creating a path for continued, sustainable, and inclusive growth for the digital economy. These goals can be best achieved by working cooperatively across all stakeholders. We support and advocate for effective and impactful multi-stakeholder approaches to internet governance. Progress towards our joint goals will be most successful when business, the technical community, government, and civil society each have an active role in the development and assessment of policy issues and solutions. This inclusion lowers the risk of unintended consequences, increases legitimacy, and facilitates implementation. Critical to our ability to deliver on the potential for inclusive and sustainable growth of the digital economy is our ability to create an enabling environment for investment, creativity, and innovation in the development and deployment of broadband infrastructure and the products and services which use it. Key elements of that enabling environment are interoperable policy and legal frameworks rooted in the rule of law, respect for human rights, the encouragement of open and competitive markets throughout the digital value chain, a safe and secure ecosystem that engenders confidence of all users in network availability, reliability, and resiliency, one that protects businesses, consumers, and other users from crime, and delivers effective cybersecurity practices and policies. Where those components are in place, we are best positioned to advance an inclusive open internet that serves sustainable development goals. This enabling environment, as well as sharing a recognition of the important role of voluntary commercial agreements and policies that promote efficiency through engineering-driven design, will best drive investment and improve the availability of the infrastructure for connectivity, a central need for developing economies looking to create a sustainable broadband ecosystem. It will also best encourage continued innovation in the services, technologies, and business models that further reduce costs, increase bandwidth, and drive adoption. A positive enabling environment will increase the creation and availability of locally relevant content, resources, and tools in all the world's languages, increasing adoption and allowing more users to realize the full potential of participating online. Protections for the freedom of expression, the press, privacy, and intellectual property, the development of e-commerce infrastructure, consumer protections, and trusted online payment systems are all important elements of an enabling environment for the investment in that content. This positive enabling environment is critical to greater progress towards full participation in the digital economy of the 1 billion people around the globe living with a disability who continue to experience a variety of barriers to accessing ICTs. And for women and others who find themselves on the wrong side of persistent digital divides, for the protection of children, and for the increased efforts to deliver capacity building and skills development. The private sector is a critical partner in our efforts to reach these goals, and we look forward to thoughtful and informative dialogue around connecting the next billion this week and at future IGFs for more years to come. Obrigada.
Thank you, Ms. Becker. Our next speaker is Mr. Qian Lin, Head of Delegation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China. Mr. Lin, you have the floor.
Thank you to the moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, I would initially like to represent the Chinese committee. I congratulate on the success of the event and thank the Brazilian government and the Secretariat for this organization. As a great result of WSIS, IGF is holding its 10th meeting to promote its special function of promoting international internet governance. The Chinese government supports its mandate and calls for active participation of various stakeholders to strengthen its real function and promoting a multi-stakeholder platform, diverse and transparency. Well, international internet is a new debate in the world to build a world in peace, open, cooperative, and its cyberspace. The Chinese part believes in 4 points. First, respect to sovereignty. Internet governance does not change the principle of sovereignty that is part of the UN Charter. The principle of sovereignty should be also applied within the internet space. Each country and each government has the right to have its own legislation according to the local situation. No other country can intervene in another country harming its interests. And clarifying the principle of sovereignty in the internet governance helps building healthy environment for international cooperation. Second point, equality. Let us not divide the country, no matter how big it is. Each country should have equal rights. It should respect the right to develop the internet, the right of national and international governance, and especially increase the help to developing countries so they can resolve or overcome the digital divide, so that the access can be made popular, and creating a space where human beings can be the center, an inclusion digital society. The third point is multilateral participation. Internet is the common home of humanity. Only with the contribution of all can we actually benefit the best. The government has the role of leadership. The government combines the problems and defines the policies towards its resolutions. The internet-related companies must have their responsibilities, and experts can support them. And internet users must have an active participation both for building and protecting them, and also have the right of freedom of expression. But anyhow, they have to comply with the laws. Fourth point, joint governance. Internet belongs to each and everyone. This means that everybody works towards building governance. Internet governance is an important agenda of global governance. Thus, the construction of a fair and appropriate system is an important task. It is a task that should never fail to envisage transparency, multilaterality, and also democracy. Being a country that has 600 million internet users, we build, use, and contribute to the internet. We participate in an active way of the deliberative forum at the UN to create the civil or the legal frameworks from the 16th of 18th of December. The Office of Digital Information in China will organize a forum in Chanxigzhou city with the theme interactivity, shared governance, and creation an internet governance. I'd like to invite you all to take part of our event so that we can all together create an increasingly healthier environment on the internet. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lin. The next speaker on my list is His Excellency Andrus Ansip, Vice President of the European Commission in charge of the digital single market. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Honorable Chairman, at the Internet Governance Forum at this point in time. I would like to thank cordially all the organizers of this event. Earlier this year, we adopted in Europe a digital single market strategy. This strategy reflects the importance of the digital economy to growth and having the right environment available to achieve this. The governance of the internet is fundamental to ensuring that our strategy is successful. But governance of the internet is important for all of us. It is about how we, people, governments, companies, want the internet to be and shaping it according to that vision. The internet has become a common good for humanity. Bringing its benefits to everyone should be our common goal. Internet governance must make sure the internet remains a global, open, and free space. A space where people enjoy the same rights as they do offline and have the same degree of protection. We need to make online opportunities open to all by closing the digital divide, guaranteeing equal access and allowing everyone to benefit. We must use the digital revolution to really empower sustainable development. And the recently agreed Sustainable Development Agenda reflects that. Next month, the UN General Assembly will review 10 years of progress since the World Summit on Information Society and decide on the future of the Internet Governance Forum. For me, the IGF provides the ideal space for all parties involved to discuss Internet governance issues openly and to shape our common vision for the Internet together. This is why its mandate should be extended for 10 years. Here in Brazil, 1.5 years ago, we saw the Net Mundial statement produced. This stimulated our reflections on Internet governance. It set out our common principles and values and outlined a way forward. While the global Internet community has started to turn that vision into reality, even more focus and energy is still needed. The European Union is committed, ready to work together with all parties to operationalize a shared governance of the Internet based on clear, fair, and transparent rules. But we also must not forget the most fragile and vulnerable. In particular, people in developing countries and civil society need to participate more in Internet governance. We want to build more capacity and confidence. This is why the European Commission has devoted a significant budget to support the Global Internet Policy Observatory. To reach these goals, we will also work with other similar initiatives. As you know, changes at ICANN are taking place. Much progress has been made in developing a bottom-up multi-stakeholder proposal to transfer oversight of the IANA functions to the whole community. The global community has shown incredible dedication in this effort, which also demonstrates how the multi-stakeholder model can work in practice. Now we just need to finalize a globalized world. Thank you. Obrigado.
Thank you, Mr. Ansip. The next speaker is Her Excellency Lengiwe Makis, Deputy Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services, Department of Telecommunications and Postal Services of South Africa. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Program Director, thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to thank the host country and the IGF Secretariat for the excellent planning of this year's Internet Government Forum. As South Africa, we're extremely grateful to be part of this high-level opening. Coming back to the topic, due its multinational scope and cross-cutting applications, ICTs have become a critical tool for sustainable development, especially for developing countries. I'm making special reference also to Africa. We've seen how the internet has changed people's lives and circumstances. Since the second phase of WSIS, developing countries have made strides with access to the internet. This is evident by the increase of mobile penetration in the African continent and the mobile applications that have been developed, such as M-Pesa. Having said that, as we move forward, we are cognizant of the many challenges ahead of us. Some of the most vulnerable people, especially in rural areas, still do not have access. This lack of access is underpinned by challenges of affordability, lack of relevant content, insufficient infrastructure, especially in areas that are not economically active. The rise in cybercrime and lack of trust that there is relevant content, skills development, digital opportunities, to mention but a few. This is an inclusive agenda with clear targets for 2020 and 2030. Significant strides are being made in enhancing the education and awareness of our users in line with government's commitment to ensure that our people are safe and they feel safe. Within the multilateral fora, we're strengthening cooperation with our SADC, African Union, and BRICS partners through existing mechanisms. South Africa is of the view that there is a void created by the lack of an international instruments dealing with cybersecurity and cybercrime. The Budapest Convention and the AU Convention on Cybersecurity have their merits and can be utilized to elaborate an effective international instrument that can be accessed and owned equally by member states. South Africa supports the WSIS vision of creating a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society, and has embraced it as a valuable tool to bring about socio-economic information. We developed an information society and development plan in 2007 to provide a national roadmap for the attainment of the WSIS action lines. The objective is to realize an information infrastructure that will meet the needs of citizens, business, and the private sector, providing access to the wide range of services required for effective social and economic participation. In line with the WSIS vision, ICTs are now a key component in the National Development Plan and Vision 2030. In preparation for the 10th year review, South Africa has compiled a report on its achievements of the WSIS outcomes to reflect on progress made and contemplate on future goals and opportunities arising from new technologies. Looking ahead to the overall review in December, South Africa would like to see more emphasis on prioritization of Africa and other developing countries, capacity building, and investment in backbone infrastructure to drive economic development, improve quality of access, addressing ICT, illiteracy, education, and innovation, bridging the gender and digital gap between and within countries. Further to this, the outcome document should be aligned to the 2030 agenda as ICTs underpins the achievement of all 17 SDGs. Equally so, South Africa is committed to sustainable development by implementing economic transformation to ensure that the youth meaningfully participate in the economy through job creation in the ICT sector. We see human capital development as a key factor in ensuring socio-economic inclusion. Lastly, South Africa would like to once again thank the Brazilian government and the IGF Secretariat for convening this meeting as it brings together all critical stakeholders in the internet community, each with their own valuable contribution to take the discussions forward. We believe that we all have a role to play in line with the roles and responsibility contained in the Tunis agenda. Obrigada.
Thank you, Ms. McKees. The next speaker on my list is Mr. Hossan El Gamal, Board Member and Treasurer, African Information and Communication Technologies Alliance, AFICTA. Mr. El Gamal, you have the floor.
Distinguished guests, I'd like to begin by thanking our hosts, Brazil, for their warm welcome, and to the IGF Secretariat and UNDESA, and to many stakeholders for their invaluable part in the preparation of this year's forum on internet governance. My name is Hossam El Gamal. I am an Egyptian entrepreneur who founded several ICT SMEs, and I'm also a board member of the African ICT Alliance that gathers the business community from over 20 African countries. I am on the IGF MAG, and I am part of the leadership of Business Action to Support Information Society, an initiative led by the International Chamber of Commerce, known as ICC Bases. I am pleased to have this opportunity to share my perspective as an SME and as an entrepreneur from a developing country. Rapid changes in ICTs and internet connectivity have made it possible for SMEs with minimal infrastructure investment to scale up and to trade across borders, entering the global economy. The kind of connectivity benefits for SMEs include reaching customers and diversifying markets, accessing timely market information, creating new opportunities and means to innovate, bringing more women entrepreneurs into the marketplace, realizing agility and responsiveness to market vulnerabilities, crowdsourcing ideas and funds for specific projects, and access to internet and mobile banking services. In short, ICTs and the internet are helping SMEs around the world to become more productive and more commercially competitive than ever before. And this is of great benefit to all the society. Still, more to be done from a policy perspective to ensure better access that is competitive, stable, and secure. Micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises are vectors for job creation, particularly for women and for youth. And because 90% of all companies around the world are SMEs, and 60% of the world employees are employed by SMEs, more must be done to engage SME community, particularly in developing economies. Every effort should also be made to enhance the capacity of women to access and use the internet. According to one study, enabling internet access to another 150 million women and girls has the potential to open up a market opportunity between $50 and $70 billion that would support developing economies. Bringing the next billion online to benefit from the information society requires, among other things, policy support for swifter access, reducing ICT investment risks, enhancing capacity building, facilitating local business innovation, encouraging local content creation, and strengthening institutional capacities. Also, international multi-stakeholder policy support is necessary and required to address cybersecurity and privacy to maintain a stable, secure, and trusted internet. There are many great stories to tell about the potential of the internet and how it has changed lives of people in developing countries. We can speak of health and the mobile application saving lives from epidemic disease in Nigeria, or the telemedicine local solution providing consultation and diagnosis, improving care to patients in remote underdeveloped areas in Egypt. We can speak of education and examples of local e-learning platforms and content made available to bridge the knowledge gap and improve equality through access for the least developed regions. Alternatives. Creating an advanced and healthy ecosystem for young entrepreneurs. Much has been achieved to date, but there is certainly more to do ahead to connect the next billion and more. The IGF is so meaningful to the business community, including SMEs. At this forum, we have a unique opportunity to engage in a candid and constructive discussion with governments, the technical community, academics, and civil society, all contributing valuable perspective. This method of dynamic and substantive exchange must be safeguarded so that every stakeholder, including small businesses, can further harvest the benefits of connected ICTs. At this crucial juncture in the history of the IGF, we must encourage effort to bring internet access to all global citizens, improving culture and linguistics diversity, expanding local content, and developing tools that promote access for those with disadvantages. Getting more SMEs and startups from developing countries engaged would certainly give opportunity to discuss challenges firsthand, as well as local industry success stories. This will help to better shape policies to enable the information society in developing countries and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I very much look forward to working with all of you to advance on these important topics, and I wish you a most enriching IGF. And thank you again for this opportunity to address you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. El Gamal. The next speaker is Mr. Shola Taylor, Secretary General, the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization. Mr. Taylor, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, all protocols duly observed. Let me first of all thank the Brazilian government and the IGF Secretariat for this excellent arrangement. I also would like to congratulate the 73 young Brazilians who are participating at this event for being lucky to be part of the future of internet. Your Excellencies, just last year, in March, the Commonwealth ICT ministers gave a mandate to the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization to ensure a constructive engagement on global ICT agenda. Just last week in Geneva, the CTO led a constructive engagement with other members of the global community to ensure that additional spectrum is allocated to new services on a timely basis. When the Commonwealth ministers met last year, they decided on a number of principles which they will support. They recognized and appreciate the central role which cyberspace plays in facilitating development and promoting linkages amongst people, communities, and cultures. They expressed their willingness to subscribe to the open, decentralized, and distributed nature of the cyberspace, which empowers the individual, fosters innovation, and also ensure that it empowers everyone that's involved in the internet management. As a free association of nations bound by a set of common values, the Commonwealth is a shining example of a complex collective of people, ideals, and cultures working together in harmony. In recognition and in pursuance of the minister's mandate, the ministers also adopted 4 principles which will guide cyber governance. They are as follows. 1, we contribute to a safe and an effective global cyberspace. 2, our actions in cyberspace support broader economic and social developments. 3, we act individually and collectively to tackle cybercrime. 4, we each exercise our rights and meet our responsibilities in cyberspace. Today, this model provides useful guidance to Commonwealth countries in tackling practical action. We also note that enjoyment of the benefits of cyberspace relies upon its safety, security, and resilience. It is highly concerning to see the cyberspace being used today as a vehicle for crime, for extremism, and other social ills. However, the necessary security measures to tackle these challenges may be in tension with the very features that have made cyberspace a success. It is therefore important to determine an equitable balance, and this is based on the shared Commonwealth values. In these are the values upon which the cornerstone, upon which the Commonwealth based its values. As a result of that, the CTO built the Commonwealth approach to developing cyber security strategies on a national basis. And this has served as a model, not only the Commonwealth countries, but also non-members. I'm delighted to inform you that this model is being used to develop national cybersecurity strategies in Botswana, in Cameroon, in Fiji, and in Uganda. As we head towards the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting toward this month in Malta, the CTO looks back at a period of highly constructive engagements with the global ICT community. It is pertinent to note that the theme of the Commonwealth Heads of State meeting is adding global value. CTO is proud to have been able to provide these values to the whole spectrum of ICTs, including in cyberspace. It is encouraging to note the recently adopted Sustainable Development Goals, recognizing the potentials of cyberspace by setting a specific goal to provide universal and affordable access to the internet in least developed countries by the year 2020. Working together in partnership, which respects and value all our stakeholders, regardless of their size, but appreciating their strengths, I'm certain that cyberspace will continue to grow as a platform to bring people together and as a tool for social economic development. The past has been exciting, but the future will be more exciting. I would like to conclude my statement with a quote from George Bernard Shaw's Back to Methuselah. You see things, and you say, why? But I dream things that never were, and I say, why not? Today, let's ask ourselves, why not? Thank you, obrigado.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Our next speaker on my list is Mr. Fadi Shehadeh, CEO of the Internet Corporation for Assigning Names and Numbers, the ICANN. Mr. Shehadeh, you have the floor.
Thank you. Minister Almeida, Secretary Masango, and Mr. Kulov, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I've said before that cyberspace is dead because there is no such thing now as cyberspace. All space is now cyber. Everything. The internet is like a powerful river that has permeated every aspect of life and every aspect of the economy. And like a powerful river, we may all try to govern it, as we use that wonderful word, govern it. But governing a river is difficult. A river is powerful. It can be maybe constrained. You could put walls, you could put dams, you could put bridges, you could put tunnels. You could come up with agreements on how to share it. But you cannot stop a river. And the internet today powerful resource into two parts. Internet works, let's call it the technical part, and what part about governing what runs on the internet. And when it comes to the technical part, I think things are pretty much coming into order. Most of the world sees the various organizations, whether it's the IETF or the ITU or the regional internet registries or ICANN, IANA, all these functions as working relatively well. Yes, we need to improve the accountability. Yes, we need to make ICANN independent with its functions. All of this is in the works, and I can assure you that this program, certainly to make ICANN independent and make it strong and accountable, is on track and should be done next year. But now we move to what's on the internet. And that has nothing to do with what ICANN, the IETF, and these organizations do day in, day out. Who will govern that? Who will decide on the many issues on running things on the internet? Where will these mechanisms be built? What organizations will be needed? How will we do it and include governments, businesses, users, civil society, and everyone? How do we do that? It's not simple. If you think it's been hard to get the technical part of the internet governed, I can assure you that the challenges ahead are even bigger. Because the issues of cybersecurity, child protection, trade, taxation, and the list is long, in fact there is 90 of them exactly, are not simple to manage. So what will it take? And how do we get there? I believe that it will take public-private partnerships. It will take multi-stakeholder involvement. And it will take more than anything, trust. We need to build trust. Because without trust, we will not be able to build together a safe internet for everyone. And today, there is a lack of trust. In fact, all the studies are showing that the confidence and trust in the digital space is going down. Why is it going down? Because it's not clear who's in charge. It's not clear what policies are affecting people. Privacy issues, security issues are growing. And if we don't catch these early, we will start our digital century with a lack of trust. We're here at the IGF to build trust. This is a hopeful place. Here in this room, we have governments, we have private sector, civil society, and technical people working together to build trust. We need the IGF, and we need spaces like the IGF to continue building this trust, so that from this will rise the mechanisms, the rules, the institutions, whatever it takes, so that we can govern what's on the internet as well as we have governed what's in the internet. So I wish us all luck. Build trust, reach out across the aisle, talk to people that you normally don't talk to, but we're all here together. No decisions need to be made, but trust should be built right here. Thank you.
Sometimes by the action of governments, but mostly by market powers. That aspect poses problems to those core values that were originally embedded in the architecture of the internet, poses problems to the promotion and protection of human rights, and also represents challenges to the internet governance processes, particularly concerning how we address our endless search for the beloved utopia of a democratic multi-stakeholder participation, mostly considering these fundamental power imbalances within the various stakeholder groups. So I'm concerned. Human rights and fundamental technical values for the Internet architecture, like end-to-end, interoperability, confidentiality, and many others, are being dissolved in this progressively more centralized Internet, coined by profit and control. And I give some examples of such centralization trends. In terms of connectivity, for instance, at least in developing countries or emerging economies, connectivity is still centralized in the hands of very few telecommunication companies. We need to discuss alternatives to this, such as public regime for internet services, discuss free spectrum, usage of cognitive radios. We have technologies for that, and I was glad that there was a particular panel addressing this issue in this edition of IGF already. Furthermore, we need to understand that zero rating practices are not the solution to the digital divide. There are people, particularly from developing countries, that practically only access one service and think it's internet. Imagine if this perception would escalate. So please, let's not sell donkeys pretending they are horses. Internet.org is not internet. Free basics is not free. Our data is paying for it. Neither basics. It's more like you are basically getting free of your rights, the right to access a global and free internet. So we not only need open connectivity, we also really need implementable net neutrality. And particularly for the Brazilian representatives, Brazilian government representatives that are here, I would like to ask for them to please consider that it's an urgency to have a regulation of Marco Civil, a decree that hopefully would set the stone about that. Marco Civil was an example in terms of process and content worldwide, but without regulation, it is in danger, mostly by market practices. Another example of decentralization is related to freedom of expression and privacy. As Special Rapporteur David Kay said today, and I find it very appealing, while we read the newspaper today, the newspaper is also reading us. All this data, our digital shadow, are powerful tool that can be used against us, either by framing our will, or to be used for pressure or clashing groups of dissent. So while we have never been more connected, we have also never been so exposed as in the digital world. And pervasive surveillance, weak enforcement for data protection, or discourse of cybersecurity and terrorism does not make the perspectives very good. So we need strong and enforceable data protection bills. And here I call attention again to the situation in Brazil. We need to deliver a data protection bill that was a result of a public consultation to the legislative and have it approved as soon as possible, so we can have coherence with our national and international agenda in the protection of digital rights or privacy rights. We also need to understand and ensure that encryption and anonymity can and should be preserved. We need to solve jurisdictional conflicts to ensure that protection of freedom of expression and privacy are not dependent of companies. We need to move forward with a transparent and accountable IANA transition towards a global system. And beyond policy approaches to human rights, we need to inform these principles for the development of technology. Technology is not neutral. We need to consider that what does it mean to have human rights considerations for standards and protocols. We need to foster free software, as it has been said in sessions here. If we cannot see, we cannot trust it. We need to work more closely to technical community to understand or at least expose the implications about what they do and human rights. And finally, we need more women and more diversity within those who develop technologies and create policies for technologies. This imbalance is already very expressive in this opening session, in which you can count 4 women. So to wrap my points, all this list of issues that can be developed further and further represent the challenges that are increasing to protect and promote human rights and the core values of the architecture of the internet in face of decentralization. My final consideration for us to have in mind is, what is the internet governance system that can address all this? What is the role of IGF facing these issues? IGF is indeed a unique space for multi-stakeholder dialogue. But we need to fulfill the mandate of IGF as provided in the Tunis agenda. We are currently in the process of reviewing the WSIS plus 10, where this issue can be addressed. But the renewal of IGF cannot be used as a maintenance of the status quo, in which the internet governance ecosystem remains the same, the one that cannot solve these issues that I've raised so far. The internet that we were discussing during WSIS process in 2003 and 2005, and later on here in Brazil in IGF 2017, is not the same. The challenges to maintain a free, open, and decentralized network have never been bigger, and the solution is related to assess whether the institutional arrangements that we build are able to protect and promote human rights and enable us to maintain technical values that inspire the creation of the internet. I hope in these days to come, we can discuss these and other issues further with all the richness they require, but not only discuss freely, let us also protest freely. This is also a political space. I've been looking at the tweets and saw that some civil society representatives are being harassed and taken out of the venue by security due to an attempt to a silent protest about free basics. It is a bit unacceptable in a context in which we are discussing free speech. So please, let's let people who cannot be in this stage also symbolically express their key questions regarding the future of internet in front of high-level panels like this. I hope this issue can be solved quickly. Finally, let us also use this space to think what institutional arrangements are needed to move forward beyond the status quo in order to reverse these trends of centralization of the internet. Let us try to put at least many of the beautiful words that were said here and look good in paper, in practice, towards a real, people-centered, open, free, global, and inclusive internet. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Varon Ferraz. Our next speaker is Mr. Lawrence Strickling, Assistant Secretary for Communications and Information and Administrator of the National Telecommunications and Information Administration of the United States Department of Commerce. Mr. Strickling, you have the floor.
Thank you. At the outset, I want to congratulate our host nation, Brazil, as the first country to have hosted 2 meetings of the Internet Governance Forum. I think it is fitting that Brazil, with its strong tradition of supporting multi-stakeholder Internet governance, be the first country to earn this honor. Over the past 10 years, the IGF has proven itself to be an indispensable platform for addressing Internet issues. Each year, I look forward to attending the IGF and meeting with this very diverse collection of stakeholders to tackle the challenges facing the Internet. This year, I'm especially pleased to see some important innovations in the IGF's intersessional work on items such as the Best Practices Forums and the IGF Policy Options document on connecting the next billion to the Internet. These and other innovations will definitely enrich our conversations this week. As we mark the 10-year anniversaries of WSIS and the IGF, it's important to take stock of where we have come and the challenges ahead. There is much to celebrate in how the Internet has evolved into a platform for global economic growth, innovation, and free speech. The open Internet is helping the economies and societies of both developed and developing nations. Not only has it created a dynamic and growing digital economy, it has transformed just about every facet of our day-to-day lives. Every one of us has a stake in ensuring the continued growth, job formation, and wealth creation that an open Internet brings. In the United States, we attribute that success in large part to the bottom-up, multi-stakeholder approach to resolving technical and policy challenges facing the Internet. This is why we are such strong supporters of the IGF, one of the preeminent international examples of this approach, and have called for an extension of the IGF that is consistent with its original mandate. We are pleased that so many countries have echoed this call, and if collectively we continue to support multi-stakeholder Internet governance, if we make it more inclusive of developing countries and more responsive to all stakeholders, then we can truly achieve the information society we envisioned 10 years ago. In the United States, we are committed to multi-stakeholder Internet governance, as convincingly evidenced by our announcement in March of 2014 that the U.S. government would transition its historical stewardship role over the Internet domain name system to the global multi-stakeholder community. Since that time, the response from the community of technical experts, academics, civil society, and industry has been nothing short of inspiring. Over the past year and a half, stakeholders have worked hundreds of hours to complete a transition proposal that meets the criteria we have outlined, and we are hopeful that working groups will complete their work in the coming weeks. This work has been tiring, it's sometimes contentious, and perhaps exasperating. It's no doubt not an easy task, but it is an important one, and all of us should appreciate the effort and level of commitment demonstrated by all of the participants in the process. Most importantly, this process is working, and I am confident it will be successful, and it will be a testament to the strength of the multi-stakeholder process when the transition is completed. But even with the growth of international support for multi-stakeholder governance, there is continued cause for concern. Freedom House's newest report on Internet freedom finds that Internet freedom around the world is in decline for a 5th consecutive year. More governments are censoring information from their citizens and attempting to put up barriers to the open Internet within their borders. The growth of sophisticated malware and other cybersecurity threats, the need to protect the privacy of Internet users, and the mounting online theft of intellectual property online have challenged governments' ability to balance these important interests with the equally important need for openness. Governments increasingly feel compelled to do something they see as meaningful to protect their citizens and their businesses from these threats. But regrettably, in their attempts to do something, governments sometimes rush to put up digital walls between their countries and the rest of the world, between their citizens and people abroad. And in recent years, we have seen governments institute data localization laws, as well as limitations on data storage and data transfer. And historically, these kinds of restrictive policies have tended to be pursued by authoritarian governments that want to try to control information and monitor the activities of their citizens. But in recent years, even democratic countries have considered restrictions on data flows. Such proposals do far more harm than good. Restricting data flows and competition between firms increase costs for internet users and businesses, retard technological innovation, and may curb freedom of expression. Now, this assessment may seem like common sense to many of us in this room, but it's not accepted by everyone, and that is why it is imperative that we continue multi-stakeholder venues like the IGF. They allow us, as representatives of diverse stakeholder communities, to come together, to offer our unique perspectives, and to work through our difficult problems and make a case for policies and practices that encourage the development of an open and innovative internet. In closing, I urge all nations to step up in support of the free and open internet and the multi-stakeholder process that has led to its success. If we want to maintain a vibrant and growing internet, we must all take action to assure that the multi-stakeholder approach continues to define the future of internet governance. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Strickling. The next speaker on my list is His Excellence Hasanul Haqqinu, Minister of Information, Ministry of Information of Bangladesh. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you all. Assalamu alaikum. Here with us in the chair, Professor Almeida, the Secretary of the IGF, Mr. Masango, and Ivan Kolov, ministers, dignitaries, private sector, and academics. Today, I'm here in this 10th IGF. I had been to IGF several times, but this time is a unique one because the United Nations is going to take a decision about the future of IGF. All the speakers by now has said that IGF should continue. I, on behalf of Bangladesh, support the idea that IGF should continue. I greet you on behalf of 160 million of Bangladesh who are using mobiles. 120 million people are using mobiles, and 46 million people are using internet. I don't want to go to the details of digitization process in Bangladesh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today I am at Joa Pessoa, but in 1992 I was attending the Earth Summit of United Nations at Rio de Janeiro, where the proposition of sustainable development was floated and Agenda 21 was adopted to save the social and planetary boundaries of the world. Over the years, there is a paradigm shift, and the concept of green development is put forward to strengthen the concept of sustainable development. Then when the world entered the ICT revolution, the concept of digital development came to the forefront because ICT became an enabling technology and can be applied in all sectors of socio-political economic life, and also can be used to enhance the process of adaptation and mitigation to climate change. Now, if we want to achieve sustainability, then we will have to link the whole development process with green development and also be linked with the digital development. Ladies and gentlemen, internet has become already a weapon of mass liberation, but still a policy of inclusion is not totally followed, and there exists a democracy deficit in the governance of internet. That is a problem of empowering sustainable development. Another problem is that the issue of sustainable and green development is being addressed, but the world has not yet developed a common approach. So still the social and planetary boundaries of the world are under threat from climate change phenomena. Another problem exists in the economic and political process of the countries. The policy of inclusion is not yet practiced thoroughly across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, so at the end of 2015, the world is still bogged down with three literacies: language, information, and ICT. And there exists poverty divide, digital divide, gender divide, disadvantage and advantage divide, north-south divide, urban and rural divide, ethnic divide. Cyber criminals are threatening cyberspace, and a tendency is seen to militarize cyberspace. Affordability, accessibility is still a problem, so the challenge of the world is to connect the unconnected. And for that, we will have to address and overcome the carryover problems up to 2015, and then empowering sustainable development can be achieved by 2030. But the magic tool is internet and policy of inclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, Net Mundial multi-stakeholder statement on development states that all people have a right to development, and the internet has a vital role to play in helping to achieve the full realization of internationally agreed SDGs. It is a vital tool for giving people living in poverty the means to participate in development process. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, internet helps empowerment of people that paves the path towards an inclusive policy, which is a precondition for sustainable development process. Let this forum take the lead in ensuring secure, trustworthy, economy-friendly, inclusive, diversified, right-based, and open internet for all. UN has already chalked out a roadmap up to 2030, we to follow by adopting policies that helps empowering sustainable development. For that, we do have only one option. The policy of exclusion shall have to be abandoned, and we should follow the policy of inclusion for internet governance, for political governance, for economic process, for social empowerment, for global political management. For the policy of inclusion to succeed, we need to say no to militarization. So I conclude, let us agree to hold an umbrella of a global cyber security treaty, and under that umbrella, let us agree to a roadmap, multi-stakeholder governance of internet. 2, common approach for adaptation and mitigation to climate change. 3, to follow a participatory, inclusive political and economic model at the national level. 4, agree to the right to freedom, right to internet, yes to human rights, no to cybercrime. 5, ensure accessibility and affordability to technology, harmonize ICTs with SDGs. Let me conclude by saying the challenge of the day is not technological or financial. The challenge of the day is to have the necessary political will, so it is a matter of political decision. I hope we will rise to the occasion to take the political decision on the policy of inclusion for our Mother Earth and for our children. To develop the policy of inclusion, Bangladesh supports the continuation of IGF. There are only 2 mistakes one can make along the road to truth: not going all the way and not starting. We have already started, so let us go all the way to 2030. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Our next speaker is Mr. Malcolm Johnson, Deputy Secretary General of International Telecommunication Union, the ITU. Mr. Johnson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here at the opening session of the 10th IGF. Many thanks to Brazil for hosting this meeting in this beautiful part of the country, and congratulations to my colleagues in UNDESA for their excellent work in organizing this meeting. This is a significant year with the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and the review of the WSIS process. It's clear that ICTs and the internet in particular are essential for the implementation of the SDGs. And I was very pleased that ICANN and the Internet Society joined ITU in a series of events recently to drive home this message. ITU plays its part in bringing the benefits of secure and trustworthy ICTs to all through the global coordination of the spectrum and the satellite orbits. Through the adoption of international technical standards and developmental support and providing a platform for convening policy dialogue. Approximately 85% of international traffic runs over fiber optic cables complying to ITU standards, and the critical access to the internet is from modems is based on ITU standards. We recently in ITU adopted a new standard called G.fast, which provides up to 1 gigabits over the traditional telephone copper lines. Currently in Geneva, we're hosting the ITU World Radio Communication Conference. This is reviewing the International Treaty on the Use of the Spectrum and Satellite Orbits. And the main objective is to harmonize the use of the spectrum so that it increases and provides for interoperability and reduces costs through economies of scale. These are highly complex and technical conferences, and we have over 3,000 delegates there in Geneva from 160 countries, representing a multitude of stakeholders. With the tradition of striving for consensus through compromise, these conferences have proved to be very successful, and I'm sure that this WRC will be equally successful. One of the main items on the wide-ranging agenda for the conference is the provision of more spectrum for mobile communications in the future. There are now more mobile phone subscriptions than there are people in the world. And with mobile broadband penetration now reaching 32% compared to just 10% by fixed, radio spectrum is vital to extend internet access to the 4 billion people still offline. This is particularly important in the developing world, where mobile broadband penetration rates are just 21% compared to 84% in developed countries. Connecting the unconnected is the core of ITU's mission. And at last year's ITU Plenipotentiary Conference, the Connect 2020 agenda for global telecommunications ICT development was adopted, setting out ambitious goals as well as measurable targets, including bringing the next 1.5 billion people online by 2020. Achieving these goals will only be possible through the concerted efforts of everyone, and I would like to invite you to join us at a workshop on the Connect 2020 agenda on day 4, where we can discuss how we can all work together to bring the power of ICTs, especially the internet, to everyone, wherever they live, regardless of their income, gender, or disability. One of ITU's goals is to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship. Many national governments have taken initiatives such as innovation hubs to encourage this, but a huge gap remains in skills, funding, tools, and knowledge. To help bridge the gap, ITU, together with 8 other organizations, has launched an initiative to support and promote small and medium enterprises, in particular those in emerging markets and with social impact. An ITU Open Forum was held this morning on this initiative, and I would like to encourage you all to join us in this effort. This is the 150th anniversary of the ITU, and our history shows that progress can only be achieved through collaboration. In the case of ITU's membership, 193 member states, over 700 private sector entities, 100 universities and civil society, all working together on an increasingly diverse range of issues. With ICTs becoming pervasive in all walks of life and business, ITU membership is attracting many new players, and we are constantly increasing our collaboration with a wide range of organizations and making ITU more accessible, open, and transparent. A new low membership fee for universities proved particularly successful, and we hope to be soon introducing a similar low fee for small and medium enterprises and non-profit making bodies. Good collaboration with the internet community is essential for ITU to meet its goals, and we hope that these developments will facilitate this collaboration. There is no single entity that can alone address all the challenges that the ICT sector is facing. These are complex global issues requiring global dialogue, cooperation, and collaboration. It is imperative that we all work together, and ITU is ready and willing to do so. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very enjoyable and productive IGF. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. The next speaker is Mr. Vin Cerf, Vice President and Chief Internet Evangelist of Google Incorporation. Mr. Cerf, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are still left in the room anyway, I am very grateful for an opportunity to address you briefly. First of all, I have to say that when Bob Kahn and I started designing internet 40 years ago, we did not imagine the IGF and certainly did not imagine the level of global attention that this architecture was going to stimulate. I'm an engineer, so I'm going to look at this from the engineering point of view. Our job is to connect the next billions on the network, and from the technological point of view, we appear to be making some good progress. For example, what we want, the theme that you've heard repeatedly over and over again is an open, accessible, affordable, and fully connected internet for all. That's our target. On the technology side, we have new, lower cost, higher speed, fixed and mobile access technologies. Outside this building, I hope you will visit a tent that's labeled O3B for other 3 billion. That's a satellite system that went into operation a couple of years ago. It's delivering 400 megabits on the downlink and 100 megabits on the uplink. There's Wi-Fi there available. Please try it out. You'll see what's possible to deliver high-speed service anywhere in the world, 40 degrees north and south of the equator. Google has its own fantasies. We're putting balloons up at 60,000 feet, and we intend to let them cycle around the world in the same latitude and also deliver high-speed internet service. There are drones available. There are people working on small sats. There are new terrestrial undersea fiber cables that are going into operation, and there's LTE and 5G in the mobile world. So we have more than a handful of new technologies to try to achieve that objective of a fully connected, widely accessible internet. However, we have some other work to do. One of them is to make sure that the IP version 6 part of the internet is implemented everywhere. We're going to need it because the Internet of Things demands it, and the population of the internet demands it. I think we've also discovered how important this inclusive multi-stakeholder policy formulation process is. We especially need to bring the developing world into this conversation more fully than it has been before. I think you would all agree that all the speakers in the preceding me would agree that another target for us is the provision of safety, or provision for safety, security, and privacy for all users, so as to enhance the trust in the use of the internet. The word trust has come up repeatedly in this conversation and in others, and I assure you that this has to be one of our most important targets. Finally, after talking about all this technology and everything else, I think it's important that we recognize that there are other elements of infrastructure that have to be in place if we're going to be successful, not the least of which is reliable provision of electrical power, increased education in the implementation, use, and application of the internet, increased local content in local languages, and finally, other tools like open source software that will enable more people to make use of the internet as it continues to evolve. Obrigado.
Thank you, Mr. Sert. Our next speaker is Ms. Catherine Brown, President and CEO of Internet Society. Ms. Brown, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank our wonderful Brazilian hosts and to the IGF volunteers and secretariat who have put together this wonderful meeting. I am with the Internet Society. We are a global organization with 112 volunteer chapters in 96 countries around the world, 146 organizational members, and almost 80,000 members, all who are dedicated to an open, global, open, trusted internet everywhere for everyone. The internet has always been about the future, and the IGF has always been about the future. At its inception, it was charged with organizing itself to think about how to think about this thing called the internet. It was going to be the future, one that was neither clear nor guaranteed. For 10 years, this forum has been like a bazaar for ideas, for trading experiences, for learning about the implications of a global network of networks that at first allowed us to communicate instantly across oceans and continents, and has since evolved to do so much more. We have come a very long way in finding common ground and learning how to learn from and share with each other. Our best practices session, widely attended today, I'm happy to say, are one of our most recent innovations. We have heard in the past 2 days very good news that the mandate of the IGF is likely to be renewed for 10 years. And so, again, we're tasked with thinking about the future. Today, we understand that the internet has grown and evolved to a global knowledge network. It is now a dynamic marketplace, and it is a service delivery network that has no boundaries. Knowing what we now know, we have an extraordinary opportunity to use this powerful tool to do what humankind has been struggling to do for ages: alleviate poverty, provide essential human services, and connect all parts of the global economies, one with the many. These achievable goals are only achievable if everyone everywhere has access to the internet. Thus, we believe at the Internet Society, and clearly many speakers who spoke before me believe the same, that the imperative of our time is to connect the unconnected and to ensure that this open global internet is safe and trusted. The IGF has an important responsibility as the premier bottom-up cross-community multi-stakeholder forum to offer principled input into how we govern ourselves in this new world, a world that is changing once again. as the internet becomes essential to education, healthcare, transportation, banking, and more in every part of the world, we must open the doors of our forum to new stakeholders, to a different group of stakeholders with expanding expertise and passions. How do we use the internet in medicine, in healthcare, in healthcare delivery, in education? Who are those people who are going to help us think about how we do that? And we must renew ourselves by acknowledging and nurturing the next generation of IGF leaders. And I want to thank you, Joanna, for your remarks. Let me point out that there are over 100 women and men between the ages of 18 and 25, digital natives from around the world and around this region, who are here at IGF now as CGI and ISOC fellows. They're here this week. Where are you guys? They are ready to bring new levels of energy to innovate, build, and use the internet in ways that will shape their future. I look forward to an important week. We should celebrate our success. We should pat ourselves on the back for the work we have done in the last 10 years. And then we should quickly turn to building the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. The next speaker on my list is Mr. Joseph Kanatachi, a special reporter on the right to privacy of the United Nations. Mr. Kanatachi, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'd like to, first of all, thank the Brazilian government for its invitation for me to be here. This is the first time that UN Special Rapporteur on Privacy is speaking at IGF, because it is the first time that there is a UN Special Rapporteur for Privacy. And the good thing about speaking after so many other speakers who have spoken about how valuable IGF is means that I can agree with most of the speakers who have come before me, agree how valuable it is, and then I can remember that I only have 6 minutes, and then I can focus on what some people have been asking me. So what exactly are we going to do about this part of privacy that we seek to protect and promote? And in fact, there are a number of things which I could talk about. I could talk about the need to improve our understanding of privacy across cultures. I could talk about our need to improve existing legal instruments. I could talk about encouraging the use of technical means, such as encryption, to protect privacy. But I would be talking in general, and here we are at the Internet Governance Forum, and so I'd like to focus on the Internet. And as we celebrate all that is good about IGF, we should, I think, remember that there were some things that IGF was not designed to do. And I think that it's important to keep that in mind in order to see some of the things that people on the internet expect. By that, when we're talking about an internet without borders, many citizens today, users of the internet, expect to find safeguards without borders. And added to that, added to safeguards, they also expect to find remedies which go across borders. And IGF is an ideal place to identify this in a multi-stakeholder environment. But I'd like to take you back 10 years very quickly to see, just as IGF was being born, what two people, Jonathan Mathias and Milton Miller, thought about it and thought about other parts of internet governance which we need to think about. And what they had to say 10 years ago was this: still, global governance must be based on authoritative agreements among governments. And this is where I join the minister from Bangladesh in talking about, for example, the value of agreements such as treaties. And I would make exactly the same kind of parallels that he has drawn on international agreements about climate change. Climate change agreements are difficult to achieve, but we still try to do it anyway. So what about agreements about the internet? Let me go back quickly to what Jonathan Mathias and Milton Miller said. Authoritative agreements not only have to be legitimate, they have to be justiciable. In international law, justiciable agreements are those that are included in conventions, legally binding international treaties. Thus, if internet governance is to be obtained, it must be treaty-based, and the treaties must have universal adherence to be fully effective. And the next part, which I'm going to read out what they said, was written 10 years ago, but I think you'll agree that it could have been written yesterday. We acknowledge the widespread reluctance of almost all parties in this process to take up the burden of a new international convention. We realize that everyone is looking for shortcuts. We are convinced that shortcuts don't really exist and won't work. They will simply defer the day of reckoning and prolong the current state of tension and lack of resolution of outstanding governance problems. And ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies, I put it to you that 10 years down the line, the day of reckoning has come. As other speakers have said, it's time to look towards the future. And there are many things we need to do in the future, and perhaps discussing the value of international agreements is one of them. So, when we talk about international agreements, we don't necessarily mean one treaty. We could have more than one treaty dealing one part of one issue of the things that we need to fix on the internet. But ultimately, nothing can substitute international agreement between governments acting on the advice and in the spirit of multi-stakeholder agreements. And this, once again, is where one echoes the vision of our colleague from Bangladesh who spoke about political will. Political will is also what is largely required here in a very, very difficult environment. So I think that we should look forward to IGF 2015 being a force for good by contributing to the discussions that can take place about internet governance in the future in such a way as identifying those means which can help take us forward in a realistic way. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm looking forward to the discussions that we're going to have this week and hopefully in future editions of Internet Governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kanatachi. The next speaker on my list is Mr. David Kay, Special Reporter on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expressions of the United Nations. Mr. Kay, you have the floor.
Excellencies, Mr. Chair, participants, I'd like to begin by thanking the government of Brazil and the organizers of this 10th Internet Governance Forum. And thanks also to you hardy souls out there who are making it this far into the opening session. And thanks also to those who have preceded me on the dais for your really sharp insights. It's an honor to address this opening session. As the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Opinion and Expression, I enjoy a mandate created by the United Nations Human Rights Council to gather information and report to the UN and to governments on developments related to the freedom of opinion and expression, whether highlighting challenges to freedom of opinion and expression or providing guidance on norms and laws. I want to begin in part where my predecessor, Mr. Kanatachi, the Special Rapporteur on Privacy, left off, which is to talk about law. And I'll talk about existing law, existing treaty law. First, of course, for nearly 70 years, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has guaranteed everyone, under Article 19, the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers and through any kind of media. For nearly 40 years, that same guarantee has been part of the global standard under Article 19 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. These protections, conceived at a time when radio and print dominated communication, nonetheless apply to any media, regardless of frontiers. They refer, in effect, to the internet before it was even born. In the years since the internet has come to dominate communications worldwide, resolutions of the Human Rights Council and the General Assembly have repeated this foundational point that offline rights apply online. To a certain extent, we here should ensure that these protections apply in fact, not merely in aspiration. So what are the challenges to freedom of expression online today? Let me begin by noting that international law, indeed Article 19 of the ICCPR, acknowledges the responsibility of states to protect the right to life, national security, public order and health, and the rights of others. States may impose narrow restrictions on expression, but only where provided by clear and pre-existing law and when strictly necessary and proportionate to achieve a legitimate objective. Restrictions on holding an opinion, by contrast, may not be subject to any kind of restriction. So the challenges. I don't have time to list them all, as I'm sure you know. But given our focus on governance, I would like to highlight in brief the following 5. First, challenges to the legal norm that Article 19 freedoms apply, quote, regardless of frontiers, end quote. This is indeed an unusual provision of human rights law, emphasizing how the freedom of expression is a transboundary right. It is a challenge to traditional notions of government control of territorial space, but it is a provision to be celebrated and put at the very center of internet governance, tying together people otherwise far removed from one another, and a chance to encourage understanding and the sharing of knowledge. Second, legal uncertainty. Who in this room can say what common rules apply in the corporate ICT sector when it comes to freedom of opinion and expression? If you can, please see me afterwards. While diversity in approaches and platforms is to be encouraged, I believe that the lack of legal certainty, substantive, jurisdictional, procedural, allows many around the world to perceive gaps in the application of human rights law online. Third, online surveillance, mass and targeted, pose a direct threat to the ability of the media, NGOs, academics, and activists to seek and receive information. Encryption and anonymity serve as protection, and they mainly exist to empower individuals to browse, read, develop, and share opinions and information without interference, and they enable journalists, civil society organizations, and many others to create the space necessary for democratic participation and accountability. Fourth, there's the challenge of connecting the next 4 billion users. This is just as much a question of governance as it is a question of resources, and I urge that we not merely seek connection, but connection based on rights, true and full access, and protection. Finally, an overriding challenge is censorship. Whether in the form of content filtering, throttling, takedowns of infrastructure, platforms, posts, or tweets, or digital attacks on civil society organizations, censorship today is rampant and a viral threat to freedom of expression. And challenges in the physical world also exist online. Attacks on those sharing information include attacks on print and broadcast journalists, but also bloggers, those who post on social media, academics sharing research, activists, and many others operating in an online environment. It is critical that we not consider those using relatively new media online as somehow subject to less protection than provided by Article 19 and understood to apply only to journalists. Internet governance must remain multi-stakeholder and take into account a vast array of interests, state and non-state. Human rights law recognizes and incorporates this principle. I urge all those working on governance at the international, regional, national, and even local levels to recall the basic human rights principles that should be baked into governance going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kay. Our next speaker is Mr. Jean-Paul Philippon, President of the European Broadcasting Union. Mr. Philippon, you have the floor.
First of all, on behalf of World Broadcasting Union, I would like to warmly thank our Brazilian host and the IGF organization for this really important meeting. How to make a growing internet sustainable? The answer to this question in my quality of representative of the broadcasting and media world at the IGF is that this goal can be reached not only through investment and through more infrastructure, but also through education, some rules and content. When you provide new cars, it's not enough to invest in motorways and new vehicles, but you also need to train people to use it or to drive without smashing on other persons and cars. In order to do so, one of the ways is to use traditional media, radio and TV, that still cover more than 90% of the population, even in the most remote areas, and are the most trusted source of information. Media in Europe, after World War II, take part at the construction of an inclusive, diverse, and democratic society. Something similar could be imagined now when new billions of people arrive to the meeting with the internet without any preparation. Radio and TV are the two most trusted sources of information. Independence, pluralism, and diversity are crucial for citizens and society. They are core values of democratic society. They are part of our common remit. Protect users of internet, children, and the privacy. Guarantee freedom of journalists and freedom of expression. Guarantee for the journalists the capacity to investigate are crucial to safeguard trusted media for the society. And coming back to the metaphor of the car, not only a common driving rule code is needed, but you also need to sync to the fuel that moves the car. This fuel, in 90% of the case, is what you call content and what we call movies, TV programs, news, books. In other words, intellectual properties. The internet governance cannot intervene also on that. It's not a question of regulating pipelines, but also and mainly to guarantee a fair treatment for author rights to produce, to ensure the financing of local production contents. We need the same level playing field for all the actors of the digital ecosystem. The second answer to this question comes from the combination of next billion users with the concept of sustainable way. I have heard around yesterday many voices saying that an access to a reduced internet is always better than nothing. I'm not convinced of these simplistic assumptions. The real value of the internet is its openness, the empowerment of each individual to access of whatever exists on the net, with the only limitation that derive from the respect of human rights. So, offer access only to a portion of it. It's a contradiction in terms. It will be denied to these latecomers the same right the first user they enjoy since the invention of the internet. For us, the right of the first internet user have to remain the same of the last. As Vint Cerf said yesterday, you can offer an access to internet restricted in time or even in bandwidth, but you cannot restrict what an individual could access or not once he starts to be connected. Are we imagining a two-class citizenship in the brave new internet world? Is the concept of net neutrality or open internet a lux to be reserved to the happy few, those that already have too much? or it's a human right that need to be preserved and guaranteed for all. Several countries already adopt or are in the process to set up rules to guarantee net neutrality as a right for each citizen. What about the rest of the world? And this approach brings me to the main reason why we are here, governance of the internet. The arrival of the next billion makes even more urgent to start to be effective in governing the internet. It's complicated now to have common rules for 3 billion users. Let's imagine what we shall be at 5 or 6. The magnitude of problems and their complexity will proportionally increase. So we need to seize this opportunity of renewal of the mandate of the IGF and to the WSIS at the UN General Assembly next month to give acceleration of this process. All the paths, including Net Mundial Initiative and IANA transition, are going to arrive to conclusion in these next weeks and months. And so 2016 needs to become the turning point. We are ready for it. And I hope that at the next IGF, we shall meet finally to discuss how to concretely change the governance of internet, and not yet if it's good or bad to change one day in a far away future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Philippot. The next speaker and also our final speaker today is His Excellency Yasuo Sakamoto, Vice Minister for Policy Coordination, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications of Japan. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Sakamoto of the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication, Japan. IGF marks its 10th anniversary this year. Japan values highly this forum, since it has been an effective place where thousands of merged stakeholders intensively have been discussing and exchanging their views on timely internet-related issues, including global issues such as global warming. I participated in last year's forum and recognize that this year's forum is much more substantial than before. For further improvement, it is important that IGF send its message worldwide and show the concrete and practical output for them. I welcome the best practice forums established last year to show such output, as they have surely improved IGF. I'm expecting that with +10 overall review of this December will recognize the important role that IGF has played by all stakeholders and conclude to extend IGF for 10 or 15 years with the current mandate. I'd like to mention internet governance. When we think about internet governance, the most important principle is to ensure the free flow of information across borders. Without the free flow of information, we humans cannot achieve a sound, sustainable, and global ICT society, even if digital divide is resolved and cybersecurity is ensured. In order to maximize the benefit from the internet globally, regionally, or nationally, public-private partnership and international cooperation are essential. The Internet consists of various stakeholders who are playing their respective roles. ICT is a remarkable, innovative field, a connected global space that every human and thing is globally connected will be achieved 10 years from now. All human beings are going to enjoy the benefit of ICT innovation. It is the private sector that has led these innovations. We should reaffirm that ICT society of today could not have been achieved without contribution from the private sector. Consequently, the beneficial ICT society of the future could not be achieved without constructive contribution from enterprises, academia, and civil society. It is regrettable to hear disputes over the multi-stakeholder approach, which was concluded a decade ago. Let us objectively evaluate the progress of the ICT society within this decade, including the activity of IGF. Finally, I would like to re-emphasize the importance of the multi-stakeholder approach and propose to practically implement its concept in a variety of fields. Japan has a variety of its best practices to share with international society. All stakeholders in Japan will continue to constructively contribute to the international society so that we can understand each other on internet-related issues. Let all of us here, as multi-stakeholders, work towards a truly globally connected society. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Sakamoto. This brings our opening session to a close. I would like to ask Mr. Virgilio Almeida, the coordinator of the Brasilia Internet Steering Committee, to close the meeting.
Excellencies, distinguished experts and delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank our speakers for providing us insightful remarks about IGF achievements in the last 10 years and the challenges the Internet community will face in the future. I also would like to thank Mr. Mazango and Kulov for their work in organizing IGF 2015. I wish you all a very successful meeting and a very pleasant stay in João Pessoa. With this, I conclude the opening session of IGF 2015. We will resume tomorrow with our workshops and sessions and many hours of friendly and mutual dialogue. Obrigado e boa noite.
Salta de repente para ver a menina que vem. Ela vem, sempre tem esse mar no olhar. E vai ver, tem de ser, nunca tem quem amar. Hoje sim, diz que sim, já cansei de esperar. Não parei nem dormir, só pensando em me Deixa então, olha o céu, para o sol, mas você vem. Deixa então, olha o céu, fala o sol, mas você vem.
E se do céu vier abrigo, cada passo em seu lugar, é tarde, nenhuma palavra mais. Descanso pra chegar mais perto do que faz mover o mundo. A primeira forma, o pouso é largo e único. Nem dá pra voltar atrás. É tarde. E o mais bonito